Right, good evening everyone, it's 7 o'clock, so can I welcome you all to our January meeting and a Happy New Year to everyone. Before we start the meeting itself, I've got a couple of members of the public who've expressed an interest in addressing the council. So first up was Ian McFetridge.
Thank you very much. Good evening everybody. Do you want me to stand up? Or?
Whatever you're more comfortable with.
I'll stand up, that's
okay.
Easier. You'll probably be able to hear me because I do mumble. My name's Ian McFetridge. I'm going to read from here because it's easier. My name's Ian McFetridge. Thank you for permitting me to speak tonight. I've lived in Brent Knoll for some 11 happy years and often used the old village shop when it was being run by Caroline on a commercial basis. I would like to make it clear at the beginning of my little speech that I'm absolutely not against the village shop facility. As I've noticed many such examples in surrounding villages, and as we drive around we look at Winford, oh look, there's a community shop. And often they're replacing commercial ventures like Caroline's. Given there's so many of them about, I cannot in good consciousness question their usefulness to the community. That said, the reason I'm asked to speak tonight is entirely about how the whole toilet block and new shop are being funded and how much it's actually going to cost us. When asking about this, I've been directed by many people, including Owen, to look at the figures on the village website in order to view the whole financial situation. Looking at the website and social media to some extent, and I heard Charlie mention social media as being nasty, I'll say that right now. Clearly the latter is not an official source of information, it's highly charged emotionally. But I'm confused, to say the least. I'm not a mathematician, so please forgive me if I've got anything wrong. There appears to be inaccuracies and anomalies within the documents regarding the actual total cost that are not at first apparent, which if explained in a thoughtful and logical manner might help me and others to understand the whole picture. I've found some figures on the website that I've looked for. I found a shop survey, that was from social media, I think Mary Cole circulated that. Community shop survey stated for an 80k loan, repayment of loan for Band D property per annum was £10.46. The council meeting on the 3rd of November, minute 130.21 states for an 80k loan again, annual repayments of 4,329 equating to £10.38, similar to the shop survey, as you'd expect. Updated note by Owen, which I downloaded from the website, suddenly it's for a 160k loan, and there's a precept edition of £11,261.58. But prior to that, I found in council minutes for last year that there was a precept increase of 11,720 for associated, costs associated with the shop. Then there's the presentation that Owen gave us kindly last month, where he says it's now 11,193, of which 8,842 is for the shop. And then the Band D cost is back down to £10 again, for some reason. And I say here, I suspect that's due to Owen trying to only account for the shop, as opposed to the shop and the toilet. So we're only getting the shop part. And then the offset with the rent. So the total 25-year cost is 279,836 on Owen's presentation, with 221,000 for the shop. Part of that will be covered by rental. At this point I thought, well, why is the shop not actually paying for their part of the project by paying rent of 8,842? Because then it would be for the benefit of the community. And it means that the parish council picks up the tab for the toilets, which is quite right, because that's what you've done in the past. Then the shop covers the whole cost for their part of the project. What a great way to invest in the community. In my research of the publicly available documents, I note, this is what I was saying about just a minute ago, I note at last year's budget meeting the council voted for a 30% increase, primarily due to village shop costs. So we went from 38,900 to 50,620, which is 11,720. Since the December the 20th, 2023 meeting, I understand that due to flooding and various other considerations, we're now increasing to 60. This represents a further precept increase of 9,380. So add to that the 11,193 that we're now proposing for the shop, the village is going to experience precept increases of 21,000 or 54%. And if you add the village shop in as well, this is now rising from 38,900 to 71,193, which is 83% rise in 2 years, which seems slightly excessive. I don't think that's right. So this is what I'm saying, my figures are probably wrong, but anyway. So I thought, well, maybe there's a mistake somewhere, and 11,720 sounds very similar to 11,203 or 11,193. So are we actually already paying for the village shop, and is it already in the account? So are we double accounting, or am I double accounting? At no point in the documents is the figure 281,539 or 279,836, depending on which of the annual figures you count. Is that mentioned? It's left to the reader to do the maths to arrive at a figure not far short of 300k, in addition to the already applied precept of 11,720. So that brings me to 600,000, because it's 293,000 for the 11,720. But if you can't reply, sorry. These are officially minuted figures, please accept my maths on these totals. In addition to the above, there's no mention of legal costs or additional working hours for the council or architect's fees or planning permission costs. Are these all incorporated within the 160k loan? Which incidentally, I can't find any trace of any public mandate for the doubling of the loan required in any official documents. At the last meeting, a member of the public told us that every single home in the village had been consulted with unanimous support. Yet I read elsewhere in the minutes, and this is in November 22, that there were 200 surveys circulated by somebody called Media Edge. I was given to understand that there's more than 500 homes in the village. If this is true, then I fail to see how 200 forms constitutes the majority. Many people I've spoken to have no idea how much it's costing them, or even that the village was paying for the shop building, as they thought the shop was like any other community shop, which is funded by shareholders who established the fund, like other community shops where the shareholders fund the establishment and running of the shop, hence the interest-free payments in normal community shops. So they will get an interest payment on their shares. In addition to this, I understand that our shop also has shareholders who are entitled to be paid interest, subject to a vote, which I noted this year they voted not to take it. But it doesn't stop them from voting in the future to take a profit or interest. In addition to this, I understand, I've already said that bit, sorry. How does this work, consider the community shop is subject to a non-commercial rental of £3,000, which is £2,200 less than you were advised, representing almost half of what the village will be paying, because we're paying 5,842. And possibly less than they're actually going to be paying for the porter cabin. This means that there will inevitably be more profits to distribute in the future as profits build up into reserves. Clearly the village will have no say in those funds, how those funds are distributed, yet we're being asked to fund the project with extremely favourable rent levels that will go to generate those reserves. Should we all be shareholders, every household that pays council tax? I also wonder if there have been any feasibility studies carried out by any independent bodies, such as surveys of toilet usage or counts of unique shop customers, given that we are being asked to stump up between 300 and 600, my maths. It would be useful to understand exactly who uses the facilities and what proportion of the village that represents. It seems to me that a well-meaning group of people have banded together during COVID to provide a valuable resource at that time, and which is rapidly turning into a vanity project supported only by shop shareholders and volunteers. and a small number of pensioners who live close by. Does that warrant expenditure on the scale that we're asking for here? If the shop ceases to trade for any reason, for instance, and I saw this on social media as well, more tech-savvy pensioners who bank online, they receive their pensions online, they shop online, they have shopping delivered to them. The taxpayer will be on the hook for 25 years. Will the incoming shopkeeper or user of the building then be required to pay a commercial rent, or will they be paying a similar small rent? I accept that I've strayed into shop matters here, for which I should be speaking to the shop, but I have to say that in the absence of a comprehensive, clearly worded single document distributed and verified, that's distributed to everybody in the village, detailing cost per household based on the official council tax bands, it feels like we're not being told the whole picture, maybe for commercial reasons that I'm unaware of, and simply referred to the village website to hunt for what I want to know. Given that we are a few months away from any potential start date, I think it would settle people's minds and put stop to all of the nastiness that's taken place on social media. And if such an official state of the play document was created, and which formed the official council position, if, as we are told, this whole project is so highly valuable and supported by the whole community, this simple document would serve to support the majority and should be produced by the parish council, as you have the access to the data on how many homes exist in each band. Such a document would be unquestionable by anyone and show true costs in a simple, transparent format that even I could understand. Finally, this is almost finished, sorry. Finally, I would like to reiterate that despite everything I've said, I'm still not against the village shop, or a village shop of some description. I just don't see why we should all pay such a huge amount without any apparent thought to minimising costs to the taxpayer or just demonstrating need without the use of superlatives. Have we thought about delivering food or papers, etc., to those vulnerable pensioners to save them coming out in the cold? That maybe even going for a cafe meeting place, that seems far more in keeping with the modern cafe culture, where those pensioners could meet and chat over coffee in the warm, which would cover the warm spaces initiative as well. I have many more questions that I'd like to ask, but I realise time's limited and I'm privileged to be allowed to speak, so I've compiled a short list of questions to email to the council that I would appreciate the council's answering. So if you could tell me, is it Owen that I email? Thank you.
Yes, please.
And I'll email you and see when I can get a response. Thank you for listening. And if anybody would like a copy of this, because there's loads of figures in there, then please ask and I'm happy to give you copies.
Yeah, that would be useful certainly to have a copy if you can send that to us.
Thank you.
I mean, I'm not going to attempt to answer all the questions you raised, because obviously we can do that later, but I think there's a couple of things in there that need to be clarified. In terms of the surveys for the village, there were 2 times that the village was surveyed. The first time it went to every house, that was the £80,000 loan that you were originally talking about.
Right.
We then became aware, obviously, with costs increasing quite dramatically, that 80,000 was not going to cover it. We looked at the £160,000 loan. There was an article that went out in the Brent Knoll News to every house to advise them that there would be a public meeting to discuss what was going to happen. And at that meeting, forms were handed out to everybody who came, and that's where the 200 came from, because those were the forms that were printed at that for that meeting. So it wasn't that they were delivered only to certain houses.
Right.
Every house got notified that the meeting was happening through the village magazine, which goes door to door. And then obviously those who responded and came filled the forms in that were then done. In terms of the rental, the heads of agreement that we're looking at with the shop at the moment, which we will be signing at some point once they're finalised, was looking at an initial rent starting at £3,000 to help them in effect get established. There was discussion at that stage of a 10% increase on that rent every year for the first 5 years, which takes it up to about £4,300, and a rent review at the end of the 5 years to see how things are, because ultimately there's no point in us trying to start supporting the shop only to strangle it at birth because it's got overheads that it couldn't cope with. So that would establish it to show that it had the legs to run with. The reason why the shop wouldn't be paying for the total costs of the loan for their element of the building is ultimately the building is the ownership of the parish council and the parish. They don't have ownership of it, they will be a tenant within it. So at the end of the process there will be a building which will be an asset for the parish.
Right.
Should the shop cease to trade at some point in the future, then we as a parish, or whoever is sat around this table at that stage, would have the opportunity to make the building available at a rent to other people for other uses potentially. But that would have to be obviously looked at the time. We hope we don't get to that point, because hopefully the shop is ongoing and continues to pay an increasing rent that will come back to the parish. I mean, the other bits I'll go through the questions below, and we'll make sure we get some replies too.
Thank you.
Certainly. One other thing that I should mention is you mentioned the 11,000 odd.
Yeah.
So in last year's precept, we built in the money that we would require to pay the loan had we taken it out, because we thought, prior to us finding about the cable that was running under the toilet block, the expectation was the building would have been taking place last year and we would have been up and running, and therefore we would have drawn down the loan.
Yeah.
So the money, we have to set our precept in December, January for the following April to April. So that money was set aside in last year's budget, so that increase that happened last year was accounted for in last year's budget.
So there won't be another 11,000?
Not in addition because of the shop.
Yeah.
There is money going on this year because we've got, as you mentioned, extra costs in relation to flooding and such, but also, unfortunately, Somerset Council have written to all the parishes saying they will probably be reducing their services that they meter out across the county.
What we guess.
And that we would be as well to build something into our budget to be able to pick up some of those services should we wish to see them continue at a better standard. So there will be, as you said, there's an increase this year on precept, but that's relating to that, not relating to the elements of the shop. They're already in the base budget from the previous year. But as I say, we're happy to go through the other questions. We'll make sure we get some answers to you.
Charlotte. Through there, Charlotte. So thank you. A lot of what Ian said is echoed by myself. So I'm not as a long-term villager. I've only been in the village just shy of 3 years now. So I came here during the COVID period when the village shop was up and running. One of my main reasons for moving to the village is I wanted village life, which include a pub and a village shop. So for me, those were very important. I'm a infrequent user to the village shop. When I go down there, it's usually to buy sweets for the kids or a fresh loaf of bread or milk. But I do go down there at least once a week. My biggest concern has been in the last month, the elements on social media, and I was really despondent to find out that the instigator of these comments on social media is actually a parish councillor. I accept that maybe the initial post didn't spark the conversation that's going on, but it is provoking a lot of concerns, a lot of worry and animosity towards what I think personally is a good project to have a community shop. And I've heard a lot of what Ian said, and to me, yeah, the figures are a bit up in the air exactly what we're paying, but I still hear the same figures over and over again. It's approximately £10–11 a year for Band D. That hasn't changed. But I am concerned that by having a councillor continually put on posts in a way that is provoking people's worries and concerns, and even responding to some of them and basically fueling this animosity, is not something that's helping the village. So people that can't be here tonight, people that are only hearing about what's going on through social media, it's not the greatest way of voicing what's going on. And so to some extent, I echo what Ian says, if there could be a transparent, very easy, user-friendly way of saying, here's an update, this is the timeline, so we needed a village shop, this is what we put in, we did these surveys, etc. This is what the costs are, and that any post on social media should be shut down except for go see this post and a link to it. Because I think people are getting very worried about, oh my God, there's costs rising, I don't know about them, what am I missing? And actually, I was here at the meeting in December, we heard costs haven't changed. And if you didn't come to that meeting, you wouldn't have heard that message. So there are people at home worrying about what's going on without that information. So that's what I'd like to say.
Thank you. Anybody else want to say anything before we go into the meeting itself? No. Okay, thank you. Thank you all very much.
Thank you.
Okay, so that brings us to the start of the formal part of the meeting. So we'll start with item 1 on our agenda, which is apologies for absence.
Yeah, we have apologies from Colin, who's currently in Cornwall, Adi, who's training with the RNLI, and Malcolm, who is not well. So there's 3 councillors who have tendered their apologies.
Excellent. Are members happy that we accept those apologies? All in favour, please show. That's done. Thank you. Decorations of interest. I'll start off as usual. I've got my normal decoration as a member of Somerset Council and as a member of the Parish Hall Committee. Just record my dispensation for the shareholding at the shop. And also tonight, I noticed that John Page has got an application in for a grant. I work closely obviously with John Page on the Parish Hall Committee, so I won't vote on that particular application. Any other decorations? Please. Very Sean, yeah. John? Sure. Yeah. Sean Jane. Thank you. So, item 3 is approval of minutes of the last meetings. There are 2 that took place. So we start with the meeting of the 6th of December first. Are there any amendments to those? And if not, have a proposal that they're a true and accurate record. David, thank you. Seconded. Thank you, Jane. All in favour, we sign those with accurate record. Please show. That's everyone. Thank you. And the same for the 20th. Any comments on those? If not, can we have a proposer? Thank you, Tracy. Seconded with that accurate record, Jane. Thank you. All those in favour, I sign them. Please show. That's unanimous as well. Planning considerations are next, and I don't believe we've got any planning applications in, so that's good. Clerk's report, Owen.
Yeah, not a great deal to say, other than one of the things I've actually done, and to some extent bears out what was mentioned earlier on. I have printed off for every member of the Parish Council a social media policy that we have, and we have always had. This social media policy was adopted in 2020. We probably do need to update it a bit now because I think social media has moved on a bit, perhaps. But I'm going to pass a copy. I think it's passed it through to Jane. I think it's important that everybody has a copy of that because that clearly is the basis on which we work as a parish council, social media. And I think it's important that share that.
We'll make sure copy that get to the members who aren't present. Thank you.
Now we also had a surgery yesterday. Just looking for more notes on surgery, but we had a surgery yesterday. We had four visitors yesterday. That's quite good for a first surgery after the new year. And there were a number of what I would describe as perhaps hardly annual issues: speeding, flood issues, hedges. These are the sorts of things, and they're just the right things to bring up to a surgery. Really, they're all things that affect people, and in most cases, we've already actioned some of them. So they were just things that had to be followed up through the council. So this is Somerset Council. So yeah, but apart from that, I don't think at this stage there's anything else that I need to raise. Because I think it'll come out later as we go through the agenda.
Okay. Thank you very much.
Chair, now,
yes.
I just need to speak on that. I've actually, for different reasons, actually come off Facebook, but I just want to raise one point, because it's been brought up already. There was a comment which I promised to bring up. I've actually said come off Facebook now, but there was a comment from our clerk, which was, I will repeat, do please try to keep up Melina. I want to ask the chair if he feels that was also an appropriate comment to put on social media.
I think as we've said before, I mean, all of us need to be very careful when we're posting on social media.
Yeah.
The